Hello, I'm Michael H. Dewberry, host of Artroverted, a podcast about the art world. Each week, I speak with leaders and changemakers in the arts, from artists to museum directors and everyone in between. We discuss their experiences, the communities they serve, and why they've dedicated their lives to art. Welcome to our season finale of Artroverted. Today we're featuring two guests, Tamara Johnson and Trey Burns, artists and co-founders of Sweet Pass Sculpture Park, a one-acre lot in the rapidly gentrifying neighborhood of West Dallas that exhibits emerging and mid-career artists in an outdoor setting on a rotating basis. In our conversation, we talk about their artistic practice, how they've realized their dream to show artists' work in a non-traditional and virtually pandemic-proof venue, and how we live in the age of goo. This episode was recorded on October 30th, 2020. So without further ado, let's jump in. Both on the podcast today. The second one recorded in studio and the second one with two people.
Wow.
So it's crazy because my format is long form, one person, and
I don't think I've ever seen you without a mask on.
Likewise.
So how long did you wear your braces?
I never had braces.
Just perfect teeth. Just
nope. You know, my dad had headgear for 13 years and his dad was an endodontist.
Yeah.
Long story. My mom had them for 6 weeks. I think it was because the orthodontist wanted vacation money or something. You know, college money for, for the kids, you know, or something.
Had good teeth.
Never needed it. Yeah. So it's nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Did you all have braces forever?
No braces.
My brother and sister did. I probably should have, but my parents were too broke at that time.
I always wanted to be a dentist who would like craft your teeth to match your personality. So like maybe not necessarily perfectly straight, but like just, you know, to reflect, you know, but I was like, no one wants to pay for that.
Yeah. That's what happened to my mom, actually. She's got this little gap and apparently there was some figure skater or movie star or something at the time that had a little gap and the dentist was like, oh, we're going to leave it because you're going to be just like you know, so-and-so.
Yeah.
But still charge you for 6 weeks of braces.
Built-in, you know, characteristics.
You know, Tamara was almost a dentist.
Well, you know, I just had an oral fixation from a young age. But I wanted to be like in first grade, I was like, I will be a dentist. I loved going to the dentist. It was just like, I saw myself on this career path and, you know, I don't know. I was very serious about it, but I did a lot of sculptures about.
You casted teeth for a while, didn't you?
So many teeth sculptures in undergrad. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I was like casting the insides of people's mouths, you know, and.
But you worked at a dentist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After I graduated from UT in Austin, I worked at an orthodontist office and made all the retainers. So, you know, bending all the wire and making the acrylic forms. And at that time, they had just kind of started doing those clear, kind of vacuum formed retainers. So I was making those. But it was a really weird place because it was like the one male doctor and then like all these young ladies. And it was strange. It was a strange workplace.
So that was kind of your first exposure to goo.
Yes.
One of your inspirations.
Lots of goo, because I also kind of would get, because I worked in the lab, but I would get brought out to help put, you know, braces on kids or take molds or whatever. And every time you take a mold, I mean, not every time, but 8 times out of 10, you take a mold of a kid's teeth, they gag and sometimes barf because it's just like a lot of stuff in your mouth at once. And so that was, you know, a lot of barfing, gagging.
So is that why you left the dental profession?
I think I left because I didn't want to, I had to be there every day at 6 a.m. And I was like, this is really interfering with my partying. I was living in Austin at the time and was like, I need to be you know, I would just like stay up till 4 a.m. and then put my scrubs on and go to work. And I just was like,
maybe that's why the kids were gagging, because your aim wasn't that great.
Or I smelled like vodka, maybe. I don't know. So I just was young and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Was that before you went to RISD or after?
Yeah, that was like right after I graduated from UT. So I was like 23 or something. And then I thought wanted to make fake eyeballs for a while. That was way too gooey. That was way too gooey. Yeah, because you have to like put your hands in people's like eye sockets. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a friend who's an ocularist.
Yes.
And she came to your opening.
Oh, really?
And she was talking with Allison, and you know, it's funny. Everyone's like, "What do you do?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm an ocularist." And you know, obviously, Allison was, you know, took the bait, and then she was like, "Yeah, well, Tamara actually, you know, trained to be an ocularist," and that was going to be one of my kind of like secret questions to throw you off. Be like, so.
Yeah, I mean, I was.
You have secret questions?
No, well, kind of.
No.
Yes, I love secret questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, you know, I was going to study with this guy in Houston who was kind of like a very well-known ocularist. And he was like, you have to sign this contract for like 5 years. And, you know, you have to train with me and I'm going to teach you all my secrets and skills and you can't do anything else. And I was like, also 23, 24 and like, was like, this doesn't feel, I'm not ready for this. I needed some wild years. And then also too, I sat in on some of those appointments where they're fitting the eyeballs. And I mean, you are really in people's like no eyeball muscle sockets. And it's pretty gross. Yeah. And I have a weak stomach.
So how did you decide that you wanted to become an artist, or how did you get into the arts in the first place?
I mean, I was always doing it. I think Trey too, like we just kind of did it as kids, but, and my mom was like very supportive. She was kind of like whatever we wanted to do. Like, do you want to dance? Do you want to sports? Do you want to crawl? Do you want to whatever, you know? And so she kind of just let us, you know, supported whatever we wanted to do. So I'd always done it. And when I went to UT, I was like, well, I guess, you know, I'll be an artist. I don't know. I didn't know like what that meant or how to have that be something that was a career.
We had like both. I remember in this conversation, we both had like formative experiences taking like painting classes with older women.
Yes. Yes.
And I had that. I took a Claude Monet like painting course when I was like, I don't know, like 7 or something. Yeah. And I was like just making the fuzzy flowers or whatever. And she's like, you're very good.
Trey's a really good painter.
This is my path.
Yeah. That's what you started. Just like copy this Monet painting.
Yeah.
You know, and I did that as well.
But you had like the lady in the mall.
Yeah. The lady in the mall, Martha McKinney. She had the
lady in the mall.
Yeah. Well, she was an artist, but she had a gallery that represented her in the mall, the Richland Mall in Waco, where I grew up.
Which is not a sprawling metropolis mall, right?
No, at the time it was small and, probably built in the 70s or so, very low ceilings and like brown tile floors. And she sold her paintings, which were mainly still lifes in this, fine art gallery. So when she taught art lessons, she just said, go out into the gallery and choose one of my paintings and then copy it.
The master copy.
Yeah. So I was just copying her, like, her bluebonnet landscapes and her rose still lifes. And, it was just very much for me. It was like, well, if you can copy this well, then that means, you could be an artist like Martha McKinney and sell your paintings in the gallery.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just always knew that I wanted to do it. I mean, I think my dad was always like, what are you going to do? This is not a career. Like, you're going to do portraits at Six Flags.
He thought you were going to be a caricature artist.
Yeah, because there wasn't an example of like, and here's someone who is a living artist.
Yeah.
So I think it was a little bit hard to grasp for my family, but I kind of just was like, well, this is what I'll do and I'll figure it out.
And what about you, Trey?
With the art stuff, like I said, I took that painting class.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I've always been very obsessed with cameras and video cameras. Like my grandfather had like one of those huge VHS things, and I thought that I could go and film a TV show and then put it on the TV for everybody to watch afterwards was the coolest thing in the world. So I definitely had that from an early age. Yeah.
Did you want to work in TV or?
I just always want, like, my hack in high school was like, okay, can my final project be a video? Like, can I just make a video and not do the paper? And I would always pitch that, sometimes they would go for it.
Yeah. I tried to do that in college too. Like, what about an extra credit art project for my finance class?
Yeah.
Didn't really work in college, but.
That's funny. And then because you went to SCAD, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Was that for undergrad or was that your MFA?
That was my MFA. Yeah. I did my undergrad at this small school called Limestone, where I got a soccer scholarship. And I was like, just going to go for like 2 years, pay for some college and transfer. But then I had a girlfriend and then I had a really good art teacher there. He was like amazing, like old school. Like he was, making us make our own rabbit skin glue to stretch our canvases and mix our own pigments. Like he was like a kind of a Renaissance man. He made like instruments and stuff. He was just like very fascinating and a good teacher. And so he was like, stick around. We'll just do this for 2 more years. I was like, okay, cool. So that's really when I got into saying like, oh, I'm going to do a degree in art. Cause I didn't really know when I first got to college, like what I wanted to do. I had some ideas, but shortly after we moved in together, we started thinking about, Sweet Pass. And we were on the subway one day. I was like, what if we did I think we were both hungover. I was just like, what if we had a ranch, where we could just put sculpture, it was like Sculpture Ranch. And we started a doc that kind of laid out this idea, this kind of like dream for something. And then just kept kind of filling it in as time went on and it became more and more serious.
Mm-hmm. And when you start saying things out loud, it's like, I don't know, it's almost like you feel accountable to your own ideas in a way. And we kind of felt that way, like, shit, we can't just talk about this. Like it's out there. It felt like it had so much weight to it just by like saying Sculpture Ranch, or like Trey had said, it's maybe it could be like Socrates of the South, which Socrates Sculpture Park is a place where I had done a project when I first got to New York. So it was like we just had already made it in our minds. So it was like we had to see it out to completion in whatever form that was. So we were kind of making our plans to leave New York, and Trey was ready to go maybe a little bit before I was. I was like,
I told you it's this pattern. I was like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah. And I was like, wait, cause I was never like, I got to get to New York. I cause it's hard to live there. It's hard to live there and have a studio and an apartment and a job and energy and time. And
it's really the winter is the moment where you're like, what am I doing? I hate it here.
Yeah. And, but I really wanted to complete one more project that I had kind of been in the works for a couple of years with the New York City Parks and Rec Department. And I finally kind of got a grant to complete it. And I said, well, after this project, I'll end on a high note, do this project, and then, we can go. And it felt like there were a lot of things kind of naturally coming to a closure. Like my studio building, was about to be, they were kind of kicking everybody out. Our lease was coming to an end. I was ready to leave, the place where I was working, just because I had been there for 6 years and was ready to kind of move on to something else. So it was like all these things kind of felt like a natural, like, okay, go move on to your next chapter. So we headed out of New York. I guess it was August 2018.
So you had primarily been working in sculpture, right? And you were working for a sculptor too, correct?
Yeah, Robert Gober Studio. I got a temp position working there pretty soon into...
Ever heard of him?
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's an incredible artist. But he's very behind the scenes. So a lot of people aren't super familiar with him, but know of his work, but might not recognize his name maybe. But he's an incredible artist, and he needed some temp work. And I think I got that position maybe like 3 or 4 weeks after when I moved to New York. And I just tried to make myself very, valuable and disposable. And I worked there the whole time I lived in New York. So it was wonderful. And so, yeah, I had various studios, but kind of landed at the best studio situation in the Navy Yard. Really big space that I shared with a friend from RISD, and was able to, my goal in New York was just like, how many projects can I do while I'm here? I really tried to look at it as almost like a residency. When I was a 6-year residency.
Yeah, the New York residency. I love that.
Because it was like, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to live there forever.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not a lifer here. Yeah. But like, always trying to be mindful of like, I'm here to, push my career and make sculpture and try to get as many opportunities as I can.
And you're pretty successful.
Yeah. I did quite a few things. Yeah. I mean, you always want more, but I did quite a few.
I was looking through some of the work that you did there, and Wandering Yard.
Yes.
It was one of the really cool performance pieces. It was like a piece of sod on top of a remote control car.
Yeah. My friend Claudia Bertrand helped me film that. And that was, I think I made that, I was working on a sculpture that had a really long, arduous process, making and mold making process. So that video was like, and I'll do this sometimes if I'm working and the process is kind of like very long, I'll do something really quick to kind of satisfy like a fast paced desire. And I just saw myself as this like little piece of sod, and I was looking a lot at different types of grasses and the grasses that were growing in the South versus the North, and different ways to purchase sod. In New York, it kind of comes in a roll, like a little Debbie's cake roll. And in the South, it comes in these like rectangle squares. And I was like, well, I'm just going to make myself like a little piece of sod. And I filmed, Claudia helped me film that from my studio to our apartment where we were roommates together.
It's kind of funny to see the reactions of the New Yorkers, because when you're walking down the street in New York, you never know what you're going to see.
Yeah,
and you get so jaded, but I'm sure seeing a piece of sod run around like magic was...
Some people totally ignored it. Like at one part, like a girl, she's like walking and then just like lifts her leg up and like it goes underneath her leg and doesn't even flinch. Yeah. And then a couple other people have like really... crazy reactions.
And then you ended up driving that sod all the way back to Dallas. But I wonder, for you, why sculpture, Trey? I mean, you've been working, you call yourself a lens-based artist, right? You're primarily focused on that.
Well, I mean, I love outdoor stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's really, but I also like and make sculpture as well. But I just think like we both kind of like this idea of outdoor cats is what we kind of called it. It's like these sculptures that lived outside. And I liked the format. When I was in Los Angeles, I saw some shows where people had done things outdoors, and I was like, this is awesome. Why don't we do this more? Why does it always have to be inside under terrible lights? Like, why can't we just, do that? So I don't know. I was very attracted to that. And, I love sculpture gardens like Storm King and Socrates are like some of my favorite spaces to go. So I don't know. That's why sculpture.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. And, and the dream of having your own space, I think for everyone who works with art is really exciting. So, so then you moved back to Dallas, and then how did Sweet Pass happen?
It was pretty fast. We had, like we said, we had kind of been mulling the idea over and kind of developing it. And when we got here, I reconnected with a couple friends who I'd gone to RISD with, and they kind of linked us up with a guy who had some properties, kind of like we were looking for like a live workspace.
Which doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't really, it's like,
not a thing.
But they're in West Dallas, there were kind of these like empty buildings that some of them had kind of been reformatted for artist studios. So we were just kind of getting like a weird little tour of this zone, and drove past the lot where we have Sweet Pass now. And we were intrigued because it was like kind of raw, overgrown, green, but then there was like a gate around it. And we were like, that could be a perfect place to kind of get our idea started. And we just said, hey, can we utilize that space? And I think it had been maybe like a land, like a trash.
It was like an illegal, there was like a truck mechanic shop that was where Ex Ovo is. and it was a dump for them. They would just put all the car parts in this thing. And then later, when that house that was next door was called Platform, and they would use that as the parking lot for like their parties and stuff. And so it just like accumulated all this trash. Like when we were cleaning it out, we like still find car parts that well up from the ground. The lawnmower finds like everything. It's crazy. And it doesn't matter how many times we clean it. We'll come back on. I'll be like, where did this brake drum come from? Like right here in the middle of the grass. Like it doesn't make sense.
You'll be raking and it's just like a bra.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Just like the weirdest stuff. The weirdest stuff.
Yeah.
We did find, I think the best thing we found is a Blockbuster membership card from like 1998.
Yeah.
We saved that.
Save that one.
But most of it, you know. So we saw it and, you know, got a lease on it because it wasn't being used for anything. And we left it pretty raw. We cleared some underbrush a little bit to kind of make room for stuff. And we were excited. We were like, okay, great. Now I have this space. And then we met this guy named Jerry who was like, you guys should be part of the Art Walk West.
Yeah.
We were like, okay, cool. What is that? And how do we get on? How do we do it? And he's like, I'll put you on the list. It opens in 20 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was, you know.
So we're like, we got to put a show together.
Yeah.
In 20 days. Okay.
So
cool.
that it was just like, it happened really fast that way. And so we reached out to some friends, you know, some of my contacts that I had in Texas prior from past, you know, school and some of our friends in New York, and kind of put together our first group show. And yeah, in like 25 days. And it was like, phew, that was it. It was started.
Because the space is really interesting. It's a 1 acre lot in West Dallas, which is rapidly being gentrified. And there's not really good roads over there either. And that mechanic shop was, prior to being what it is now, Ex-Ovo, was Erin Cluley Gallery.
Yeah.
And I feel like she kind of put that place on the map. People started taking notice.
Yeah, she was out there, I think had been out there for maybe 6 or 7 years or so. So
she left because of the roads.
Yeah.
Well,
those collectors were like, I'm not driving my Maserati over here.
Yeah. Well, when it rains, you have to like forge a lake.
Yeah.
You know, and every time I'm like, our car's not going to make it. It's like Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
But so it gets, and you feel like you're not supposed to be driving back there. Like it just feels like, where am I?
Well, I remember the first time we took your mom back there, she was like, oh no, there's graffiti. This might be some gang activity. We're like, no, okay. I mean, it looks a lot rougher than it actually is. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But
so where did the name come from?
it just kind of came.
Yeah.
We were just thinking about like ideas and names for places, and we'd watched a lot of movies, and we were watching True Stories, which is David Byrne's film about like North Texas.
Have you seen it, Michael?
Mm-mm.
I
gotta see it.
Recommend.
Should screen it at the park.
We have.
Hi.
Yeah, we have. We should do it again though.
Yeah, it should be monthly.
He was talking about overpasses, I think, being like the cathedrals of our time, kind of in his David Byrne way.
Mm-hmm.
And then like pass came in, and then like we were kind of thinking about that as like a mountain pass, like a sweet pass, like a Shangri-La space, you know, and that kind of hidden valley thing that, you know, that it kind of has. You have to know it's there to go find it. Like you're not going to just like drive by it. So we kind of took that, and like we also Googled Sweet Pass Dallas, and it was just like the only thing you'd see is like Sweet Pass Tony Romo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a video.
And like we could get all the Gmails and all the domains. It wasn't a thing that we would have to kind of like fight to get. So it was like, well, sure, let's go. And Trey made a logo, and, you know, and also too, we were, you know, thinking about moving from New York to Texas in this like passage of geography, like physical space, but also to, you know, I don't know, passing into this new phase of our lives. And, you know, all these kind of terms that it conjured: sweet ass, sweet tea, sweet grass. I mean, it was just like all these kind of nice feeling things.
Yeah.
So it kind of just...
It stuck. When we found it, it just was like, that's what it is. I don't know. It was like, you know, you like trying to name a pet or something. You just kind of like, how about this? And you start saying it. You're like, no. And it just Sweet Pass felt right. And I think it's, you know, kind of hilarious that our logo's a mountain in a space that has none.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I mean, it does right now.
Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, it's an amazing place. It's really bucolic. It's kind of like a diamond in the rough, especially with all the gentrification that's happening around. And I read that you all have a 2-year lease. I don't know when that's up or when you signed it, but I'm wondering how you feel.
Yeah, I think it was up. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that, we don't love that about this space. There's a certain precarity to it. You know, that's just sort of the arrangement over there with everybody. It's like, well, it's here for now, and that's what they'll leave it at. And that's, I don't know if we love that, it's hard for us to think about long-term plans with that on the horizon. But that's what it is.
And I think we kind of, we knew that going into it, but thought, well, we can do what we can do while we have the time, and thinking about kind of building some roots. We had just gotten to Dallas, using the park as a way to feature artists, but also work with artists, connect with other artists, living and working in Dallas and Texas and beyond. So, if anything, we were like, okay, even if we just have 1 year or 2 years, I think we can still use that time effectively. And, it's especially now with COVID, the development, I think, has kind of slowed down a little bit. So we check in every once in a while with our landlord, and he's like, you're fine.
Yeah. Well, I think Dallas has that. And it's, for me, it's like, it's got 2 airports, it's highways and stuff. And like, it seems like a very transitory place. People come and go here all the time. Mm-hmm. And like, we were here because Tamara got this contract teaching position for 2 years. And it's like, okay, well, I guess we'll do this for 2 years. Yeah. And then her contract got extended, and now it's, who knows, and like same thing with the park. It's like, I guess this is it for now. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. And I think too, long-term plans, we want to be able to own the space that we occupy, that Sweet Pass occupies.
Or like, I guess anybody listening to this, or like a 10-year lease.
Yeah. Something that feels a little bit more secure. All of the way that we came to Dallas was so fast and quick. It was like we were just kind of rolling with what we were given. Yeah. And trying to kind of squeeze out whatever we could from the opportunities that presented themselves. So, so far so good.
Yeah, I think the ephemerality of the space, and the work that you put there, and it makes it all that more sweet.
Yeah.
How has the response been?
I think mixed, but in the best way. I think what I like about Sweet Pass is, you have people who are kind of accustomed to visiting art spaces or, an art going crowd, and they can see the nuance or the kind of the quirky, strangeness of it, and can appreciate that. And then I think, sometimes we'll have people come who've maybe like seen an article in the Dallas Morning News or heard us on Art and Seek, and they'll just be like, okay, hello, I'm here. What do I do now? Yeah.
We had somebody show up with the paper one time. Like, is this you?
Yeah.
Yes.
And either way, I think that you're going to come to Sweet Pass and have some sort of experience that is different and, outside your maybe normal ways of viewing what you consider, art viewing. So even if it's not your style, right? Like there are people who come and we can kind of tell they're like, yeah, okay, bye. But I think even that we've shown them something that is like, here is another way of observing. Here's another way of being in space with objects in a natural setting, that's not a park or not, a museum sculpture garden. It's like, it's somewhere in between, and I think we like showing that to anyone who wants to come out. The people that do come out, you do, like we said, it's like, you kind of have to find it and find your way back there.
And also like, we've had some, nighttime exhibitions, and that has changed people are like, very like, what is this? Where are you taking me? What are we doing out here?
I had this 16 email chain with a lady, like, I am not comfortable in the dark by myself. Yeah. I had to walk her through it. I was like, okay, well, maybe bring a friend, and I'll stand right at the front gates, and I will be there to show you where, so I think too, for some people, this is not strange. It's like, this is an outdoor art space. And for some people, it's like so new and different. Yeah. So the range of response has been
there's like some types. There's like some archetypes of people that come in the park. There's like, your culture vulture, like they Okay, cool. Awesome. They'll be excited that you're doing something outdoors and temporary. And then you'll get the people that come in that are like, this is amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. And like, you know, you have a park. They get the idea that like, oh, you're making a park and it's cool. And then there's like some people that come in and are like, how are you guys paying for this?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like,
did you buy this?
Yeah. It's like, great question.
Yeah.
We have a terrible business model, but
buy a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a wide range. And I mean, I think both Trey and I do a lot of like tours and we bring students out there. And I mean, I really enjoy that too. Teaching at SMU, I try to always bring my classes out there to show, you know, people who are kind of like these young moldable minds, like here is an example of what this is and what this looks like and how you can kind of craft a platform or venue, not only for yourself, but for your peers and other artists that you want to work with. Like, it's not just like get in line to get gallery representation, you know, like there's a way to create something that you want to happen where there's a void. So, you know, I think that, you know, it kind of like we have this, you know, little educational component to Sweet Pass where we like to fold in those ideas of just saying like, hey, here is another type of example.
Yeah. So our friend Sophia kind of talks about it. I think this is her term or she read it somewhere, but it's the vacant middle. You know, it's like this zone that doesn't really exist. I mean, in New York, there's plenty of these spaces, right? Like this kind of like artist run sort of alternative, whatever DIY thing, which I don't really love that DIY moniker, but then it's like, you know, you have that or the Nasher, you know what I mean? And like that middle spot, because of the history of Dallas, a lot of those other spaces got closed. We didn't know that when we came here, but we like sort of have stepped into that space where we're like that middling space, you know? Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I like that spot.
Yeah. Because I do think it has the sensibility of like, you can come here. You don't have to necessarily be someone who goes to museums or know what it is you're looking at. And it's fine. Like you can still come here and see something interesting. And if that's all the takeaway is, then that's a success for us. So I do think it has an approachability to it because of its location and because of its, you know, like we're not trying to manicure it to some level of, you know, golf course, you know, status or, you know, aesthetic.
Yeah.
So I think it has an approachability to it that, you know, is important.
Yeah. And I think especially since the pandemic, you know, with museums having been closed, trying to figure out how to feel safe going back into galleries and museums, it's tricky. I read an article in the art newspaper, and it was a journalist who had been filming some BBC program about art in the British Museum or National Gallery. And they wrote that they got COVID from being in the museum.
Oh, God.
Which I think is absolutely crazy. And museums are trying to figure out how to do that. But going to actually your opening at Exova, the gallery next door, was the first opening that I attended since the pandemic. And I only felt comfortable there because I'm familiar with that space. And it's one big room with this giant garage door that was totally open. And then I knew the park was next door. And at that time you had Erik DeLuca's piece. Maybe you could talk about that. And that's an interesting kind of relationship that you all created with another.
Sure. Mm-hmm. The Staff of Aslecpias.
That went up. Yeah. We opened that show very quietly and softly in the beginning of June.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We had a March show planned and we had a June show planned. We had some big ambitious programming that, you know, kind of went away. And we had all the stuff had arrived. Like we still have the crates for this show that's supposed to happen in March. And like we were going to do this thing, and it just kind of, we're like, well, like everybody, a great postponing, right? Mm-hmm. And so we kind of started to think about like, what can we do? Like, how could we do this space? And like people were getting more comfortable when they're learning about this disease or this virus that's like more airborne. It's not like on everything. It's not like in your clothes and stuff. And, you know, I'd been working with 100 West because they ran into a similar issue, is that like they have these residents and then they have open studios to show off what the residents have been working on. Well, they couldn't do the open studios. So Kyle Hobrich from 100 West in Corsicana reached out and was like, hey, would you want to come down here and sort of like spend some time with these residents and like get to know their practices and interview them and make some videos? And I've been thinking about this idea that maybe we could do like a series of interviews. And that's kind of where Rope Walker came out of, and I started just kind of like spending some time with the artists and filming them working in their studios. And when I got to know Erik, he was down in 100 West and was kind of working with the material of that space. And the site that he was working out of, this beautiful old building, was a Jewish merchant's shop from the late 1800s into the early, turn of the century kind of era. And he started researching the history of the Jewish population in Corsicana and got interested in the cemetery that was there, and then started to make these connections with the migration, because there's a kind of incredible Jewish migration story in Texas that I didn't know about. And he started to grab onto the monarch butterfly, and so looking at this kind of migratory path that they take from Mexico to Canada, and they pass through Texas to get there, but the stuff that they feed upon, the milkweed plant, where they lay their eggs and sort of like use as a way station, is kind of been decimated because of infrastructure and, suburbs. He started growing this stuff in his studio. And, I was like, this is really cool. And he started kind of telling me about his plans to plant this in the Hebrew cemetery. And, him, Kyle, and I started kind of being like, we could do another way station. We could plant some of this stuff at Sweet Pass, and make that another site and connect it to Dallas and maybe kind of drive some interest. But also just like, I love this idea. It's really beautiful. And he was like, immediately on board and started to think about it as more of like a sound installation, where he would install this kind of like 80-foot long light strip that kind of demarcated the south to north migration path. And then also he kind of composed, he's a musician himself, and he composed this sunrise sunset rendition from Fiddler on the Roof. So that became the Staff of Aslecpias. Asclepius is a Greek god, right, of like health and wellness, and that symbol of that you see on a pharmacy is he kind of got that image of the strip from that. But then also Asclepius is the Latin name for milkweed. So there's like a kind of a weird like double word thing that he was kind of trying to play with. So that's where the title came from. And we installed it at the park, and it became this very quiet evening and morning time, although we only did one. We only
sunrise.
Had one, sunrise and sunset piece, right? It would come on, it would light up at sunset and then play for 40 minutes and then go off. And then the sunrise, same thing. And it became this very like, quiet piece that people could come out to. And we had like, less than 10 people at a time. And, people were really grateful when they came out to visit it, because people had been locked in their houses, their domiciles for a while, and like finally had come out and like, I don't know, it was weird. Like they were like kind of walking towards us like, hello, hello, and so we just had like all these nice openings, like open hours. We never had a formal opening. We just kind of kept it small, And that's what we started thinking about more about the park. It could just be smaller and quieter and just one project, and like let people come out to feel comfortable, like you were saying, because people were spooked, but they still wanted to do something because they were trapped inside. So
yeah, I remember when I saw it, I didn't see it at sunrise or sunset because I'm not a sunrise person. And sunset, with the summer hours changing and work, I just hadn't been able to make it. I saw it during the day, and I was still riveted by it because I could imagine it activating in the light and the sound component. And then I heard that it got vandalized.
Oh,
yeah.
Was it because the neighbors didn't like waking up to
It wasn't a neighbor. It was a person who was squatting, and they didn't like being woken up by it.
Yeah.
And
they just ripped the cords.
They ripped the cords out of the house and shorted the DMX controller, which was aggravating. That was a difficult afternoon to fix it. But that was a little drama. But yeah, we decided maybe we shouldn't. And we actually also had some like wine drunk ladies wander down from the apartments, like with their glasses, like, what is that sound? kind of banging on the gate.
One guy I remember said, I thought you guys were having a seance back here.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was just because the music was very slow and drawn out. So it wasn't like a normal sounding melody. And I think it was kind of like, drew people in an interesting way.
It was like a call. I mean, it felt like a call to prayer, a little bit. And like, I think Erik would be okay with that description of it. It just had like this kind of like subtle kind of droning, like call, and like some people followed and we didn't realize that the sound carried to the apartments, but it did.
Yeah.
So we kind of adapted it to be only on Saturdays, after a couple incidents. So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I heard it was neighbors, and it's great to now know the real story. So squatters neighbor, because that's the nature of that neighborhood. That's where you would have squatters. But since then, your programming has kind of shifted, and I think that's related to the pandemic. But some of the issues you're tackling is also related to conversations about race and politics in this country. And you had an opening last weekend, and I know it's kind of a series of this project, that Healing Pieces, and I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah. So we were contacted by Clyde Valentine and Sophia Bastidas, who Clyde is the kind of like lead director of an organization called Ignite Arts Dallas, which is kind of under the SMU Meadows School of the Arts umbrella. And they started this kind of larger programming where they are working with a bunch of different organizations to kind of talk about a variety of topics like mass incarceration and working with the Dawson State Jail, which is kind of right near the Trinity River, close to Sweet Pass, kind of reimagining what that building could be. And a lot of other kind of, activist groups and social justice organizations. And they came to us and they had this idea to kind of start the Healing Pieces programming with a group based in Berlin called Black Power Naps. And Trey and I kind of looked at some of their work, and we were like, this group is really amazing. And
Navild Acosta and Fannie Sosa. And like, we watched, like, they did like this video, and just check out their website. Like their work is really cool and like refreshing, and like talks about the politics of rest and like, not working, and like the stereotypes and all this stuff. They said that they want to make a Black Power Naps park. And I just, yes.
Yeah. We're like,
no question.
Yeah. So we just started kind of working with them to kind of plan out what this would look like and how it would be fabricated and engineered. And, like with most of our installations, Trey and I, we, juggle a lot of jobs. We're organizing, we're communicating with the artists, we're helping fabricate pieces. Cause, if we're working with a group, or an artist who doesn't live in Texas, oftentimes we'll kind of help fabricate the pieces or parts of pieces to kind of save on shipping, or, just finding ways to kind of collaborate and, support artists the best way we can, with what we have to offer.
And that's a lot of the time just our labor, our sweat equity.
And, like documentation.
Of course. Yeah.
So, we were working pretty close with the Ignite Arts team to put together this exhibition. This is their first kind of outdoor, like, kickoff piece of the Healing Pieces, which is going to be multiple, like a slow reveal of projects over, the next year or so, alongside also a project called Project Witness, which is about solitary confinement. And on the small house that's adjacent to the park, there's a QR code that you can link to on your phone, and it kind of takes you down this like very poetic
augmented reality animation about experiences that people have had while incarcerated. It's actually really incredible. You use like a Google Lens and you kind of walk up to it and it just triggers and starts. I was like, what? I mean, it's perfect for the house, because the house, we do a lot of like new media stuff and experimental performance type things. And these pieces are kind of a sleeper, because you have to let people know it's there. So I encourage you to go check them out, because they're very cool. But Sophia's been like a long time collaborator. She was kind of there from the beginning. She's like the vice president of our nonprofit. And we've collaborated with her a lot. She actually also curated the Staff of Aslecpias piece too. The Black Power Naps, they kind of gave us some ideas, like we want hammocks that are tie-dyed, and we want grass mounds that people can lay and sleep on. We're like, okay. So we had to do that. again in 24 days.
Yeah.
Because that was like that was just the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to like figure out how to engineer these mounds, get the dirt there, cover them up, get the grass seed down, because that was very important. We were kind of worried about the grass not coming in. And then also,
and then it came in like a shag carpet. I mean, it came in.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And you had all that rain like right before the opening. I think it was like 2 days before the opening.
People were like, the grass is amazing.
Yeah.
It looks fake. It really does.
It doesn't. Yeah. It looks crazy.
Yeah.
But I think too, the whole process of working with Black Power Naps and Ignite Arts, I mean, it was just like such good energy. I don't know. I think that good energy got put into the grass. Yeah. I think that's why the grass grew so well.
We were also singing to the grass.
Trey was singing.
Yeah.
Grow, grow, grow.
Yeah.
I forget the song, but Trey's kind of a plant whisperer.
I just think if you talk to it, they do better, you know, it's really, and like singing is even better, you know.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. I inherited a brown thumb from my mom who's got a black thumb.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you there. Yeah. I think my pitch isn't that great. I think that's why my snake plant died, but no, but Black Power Naps behind it is pretty serious. I'm just looking, I found the quote from the press release. I think it says that, quote, it also looks at historical records documenting the deliberate fragmentation of restorative sleep patterns to subjugate enslaved people. Serious stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what Black Power Naps does so well. You know, they kind of embed this really intense kind of historical, cultural experience of Black and brown people into their work in a way that's like you can come to it and like have access to it. You know, like you come into the park and you think, oh, wow, look, grass and hammocks and this is cool. But the underbelly of it is, you know, a site for like really rich, intense, complex,
radical
layered histories, you know, and I think having both kind of activated at the same time, a place where you can come close to that and even lay down on that context and history is a really powerful thing.
There's a sound piece in it, and that kind of is the kind of a mission statement, essay type piece that kind of talks about this stuff. And one of the things that Sophia pointed out was that like they say that you are everything, like you are all the things that have been created was because of you. Like you're a Black or brown person, and that should make you feel powerful, you know. And it's super beautiful. I mean, I'm really touched by it. But the piece, like I like that you were saying, is like it's what I like about it is that it is radical and it's welcoming too. It's like, come and lay down and think about how fucked up this is, you know, and like it's just has these multiple entry points that I really, really like. So we're happy to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it works well in the space with the neighborhood. And,
exactly.
You know, David Jeremiah, the artist, who's a stone's throw from the space. It's really amazing, and all the work that went into creating those mounds. I remember attending an opening of Alicia Eggert's students. Mm-hmm. It was a light.
Yeah.
And I remember walking through the mounds and I was like, is this part of the piece? I was like, oh, this is really cool. It's like land art. I was like, man, they're doing some really cool stuff. And I was like, wow, I don't know how they put this here. This is a lot of dirt, you know?
Yeah. We had, I mean, you know, October is always a crazy time, September, October, because I don't know, the Art Walk West is always happening. And then, you know, that show that we do with Alicia Eggert's, light-based installation class. We've done it 2 years in a row now, and it's always super fun. We love doing it, but it was like kind of like we had a lot of things overlapping at once.
And it's funny because that's like coming up, like, you know, we have all these layers on top of each other now. We've only been there for like 2 years, but like, you know, when we were like digging the mounds, we're finding baseballs from the baseball show. There's like still the Asif Mian piece was still up while we were digging the mounds. And like Brandon Kennedy did a performance during the baseball show where he planted a tree, like a sweet olive tree, and we've just left that. And so it's just funny, like now all these things kind of like have tangled up together and they just kind of bleed one into the other.
Well, we're kind of making our own sedimentary layers. That
to really confuse archaeologists.
Yeah, right. I was like, maybe, you know, hopefully the park will never be developed, but if it is developed, maybe you'll be able to take like a the stratigraphy or the like take
Yeah.
a, you know, a core sample, and you can have, you know, these are all the shows. This is our catalog, you know, of exhibitions.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
That's good.
you could sell it too. I don't know. Another big project you're working on is Aurora, the Aurora Biennial. It's their 10th year anniversary. It's a kind of a Dallas-based sound show that happens. It originally was kind of a one-night thing downtown, and it's always with curators from kind of around the world, and the people who've put it on. The Kings have really done a great job doing that, and I'd love for you to talk about that experience and that project.
Yeah, it's been a crazy process because it was set to open in November.
Yeah.
And we had started planning, we got asked to be the associate curators working with Noam Segal, which is, she's a curator based in New York. And so we were on board and kind of set to.
When did that happen? February?
Yeah. January, February.
Yeah.
It was like 8 months out before. And we were like, all right, we're going to do it. And again, in the same structure of one night event, light, sound, video, technology based, big, huge downtown footprint.
50,000 people come out to it. Like crazy numbers, like, like, I don't know, like a stadium full of people come out to this event. And, we start planning this stuff. We're like playing catch up because we got in a little bit late, but they wanted to have some people on the ground because Noam is based in New York, and a lot of the people are coming from overseas. And so they wanted to bring on some associate curators to kind of help with the index of the local, like to know things and to know people, but also just to do some like logistics or whatever. And then COVID happens, and then the Great Postponing happens, and then like we don't even know if this project's going to happen, and we go round and round and round about what we're going to do. Obviously, you can't have this 50,000 person event anymore, and so they kind of landed on this idea that they're going to do the biennial and extend it over 18 months, and it would just be like a series of projects rather than one night. It would be episodic, but still speaking to a common theme.
So things got reeled in and reeled back and tucked away and budgets, reconfigured. And so now it's going to be kind of kicking off in a week. The first artist is going to be...
What?
I know. It's crazy. It's like, well, I'm saying this, and like it's November. I think, it's November.
Yeah.
And the first artist is Marina Rosenfeld, and she's going to have this really beautiful sound piece inside of a parking garage downtown. So, we've just been kind of, we shifted from this like big, huge one night thing into like a longer, like Trey said, more episodic project.
Noam said decentralized biennial, which I thought was kind of cool. But yeah, I think a lot of people are dealing with this. Like, how do we do things that we did before? Like, how do biennials happen? How do art fairs happen? How do just openings happen in general? And this is what they landed on. And, we've been supporting it. It's been wild. Yeah. It's been like intense.
Well, and I think most institutions are kind of going through this weird thing. It's like, you don't know what to do. You don't know how to create some sort of nude. I mean, I feel like we're also kind of feeling that way with teaching too. It's like, okay, invent a new model in 6 months, ready to go, and it's just like, no models are going to be good. They're just going to be kind of like an adjusted version of what we know how to do, and maybe in 2, 3, 5 years, like the Zoom sculpture class or the Zoom biennial will be figured out. But, all of these kind of knee-jerk, quick, figure it out, how do we do it? It's like, it's just hard for, I think everyone.
But the Marina Rosenfeld piece is called Ssalute, like a double S, Ssalute. And I think it's pretty elegant, like solution for this. Is a car-based sound piece. And you drive up this parking garage that's downtown, and you hit the 10th floor, and a trumpet player sort of announces your entrance, and then you kind of pass through this deconstructed salute. It's about 16 audio channels, and you have your car windows down. It's like, this big, powerful sort of blast. Like you would feel like somebody blowing a trumpet, and then this trumpet keeps reverberating and it's sort of being like mapped and remapped and augmented. And then you sort of pass up through the bell of the parking garage and exit into the air. And then you're up on top of this parking garage, and you have a panoramic view of downtown, and there's the IMP tower right in front of you. It's pretty cool. We're excited to have it here. And Marina Rosenfeld, if you don't know her work, she's kind of an experimental composer and sculptor and installation artist. And she's done a lot of really cool things that deal with sort of fragmentation and sort of re-augmenting sound. And she had this really cool piece that Tam and I both loved, is a all-female electric guitar orchestra. And they put them down on the ground, and there's like 20... The guitars, yeah. The women. And everyone's kind of sits on the ground with their guitars, and they play them with nail polish bottles. And so it's just kind of like this weird, like droney sort of like wall of sound, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, she's awesome.
Cool.
Have you tested it yet? Do you know what it's going to sound like?
Yeah, we have some tests, but like the real tests come in a couple days.
Yeah.
But we have like they've kind of spatially mapped the stuff and experimented with it, and we've heard, and it's very, very cool, and I think it'll be rather unique, and not like glitz and glam. It's like a sonic sort of like blast, like it's like using it's not retinal. It's a totally unretinal piece. It's like that sort of like auditory thing that I don't think many people have ever like had that many things happen for their ears, which is cool.
Should we bring earplugs?
No. You're fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I got my ticket because you told me to.
Good.
Yeah, I think it sounds really exciting. This is this new model, this new uncharted territory we're going into, and you all are kind of ahead of the curve, already having Sweet Pass and have executed a lot of outdoor.
Well, I got to plug a project that we did 2 years ago. It's called Away Message, right? And then we had a sound. We do this every year. This will be our third year coming up, where when we're during the cold months, like in December, we do a radio broadcast at the gates of the park, and we commission sound works to be played that you can tune in through your car radio. And like, we just did this as a way to like fill the gap, because we're like, no one wants to be outside in December and January. So we'll just have this like sound piece outside of the gates so we could have something, because it was like right after we started. And then we did it the next year, and then all of a sudden it's totally relevant. Yeah.
So we're excited. We're working with a really great artist, Ezekiel.
Yeah.
Based in New York. And he's curating our Away Message this year. So that'll be up in December.
Yeah.
Ezekiel Mohammed.
So I think it's funny, you all just, you're really dedicated to this. You all just came from the park, actually. And there's I don't know if there's a little dirt under your fingernails.
Oh, definitely.
Always. But I want to talk about Goo.
Oh, yes.
Your newest project. It's really, it's pretty sexy.
Thank you. Goo is sexy. Well, this was, so I was, moved back to Texas and was kind of had this time to kind of negotiate my relationship to the South, my relationship to Texas. I'm closer to my family. Trey and I, we both had new jobs. We got a puppy. We were living in a house. I mean, I haven't lived in a house since I lived in my parents' house, So it was like all these new feelings and emotions and senses that were exciting and uncomfortable and unique and fun and scary and weird. And for me, I was like thinking about these kinds of like amorphous feelings as being very gooey and being something that shifted minute to minute, day to day, and kind of translating that to the work that I was making in the studio, which was also very gooey. A lot of the materials that I work with are, silicone rubber, that's used for special effects, or, resins, slow cast resins, or epoxy putties, variety of different, types of goos. And, I started making this piece that was a column that was a stack of deviled eggs being kind of pierced or penetrated by pickled okra. And for me, it was like this moment of connection where that pickled okra kind of like pierced into the gooey yolk of the deviled egg. And for me, I mean, I had done this like I think because these two items are things we always have at family gatherings. And I was sitting there with my sister, like, I don't know, Super Bowl or something. And I just put a okra in the deviled egg and I was like, like there's something to that just kind of like buzzed in my head. And I was like, this is a sculpture, but this is also like, it's like this weird kind of male female thing, but it's also like super kind of like goofy and like pseudo-sexual. But it's also like really, beautiful. And if I could like freeze that moment, that gooey moment. And so I made this column, which was kind of also a take on Brancusi's Endless Column, which is a very famous sculpture. And, I was just thinking a lot about the goo, and I was thinking about this moment where the goo becomes active or the goo becomes like a sensory kind of like feeling. And, along this time, Trey and I had been working with Wassaic Projects, which is a organization up in New York. They were applying for an NEA grant at the time, and they had chosen 3 different groups of artists to work with to make proposals for projects. And we had come up with a project, which, because of COVID shifted like 800 times.
Yeah.
And they got the NEA grant. We all got a grant, and Trey and I were like, well, what can we do? We're not going to be able to get up there now to kind of do our original idea. And Trey was like, well, we should just, do your Philosophy of Goo and make a video. And so I started doing some research and trying to kind of like combine these ideas of like not only the materials that I was using in my sculptures, but also this kind of more autobiographical sense of goo and what that meant to me, but then finding it in other places, the like etymology of the word, politics, pop culture, film, nature videos.
Well, Tamara made this like brief cut of, it was about like 6 or 7 clips of like goo moments in like early childhood films that she like just kept resonating and bouncing around in her head. And I like saw it. I was like, this is awesome. Like we could do so much with this. Like, let's make this a full-fledged video. Like this is an essay. I know it. We just started working at it, and it took us down to Waco, and like we documented her aunt and her sister, and we just started watching all these B movies and started like finding goo and thinking about goo and writing about the goo and
And so it ended up, that was, kind of in conjunction with the column that I was making in the show that the column went into at Exovo. Trey and I during quarantine got to kind of really develop and flesh out this video idea, which is also in the show at Exovo. But now, tomorrow is Halloween, will be debuted, projected on the side of a large building in Wassaic. They have this beautiful old mill. And then I think they will screen it in the spring once the weather gets a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
And so that was, a way for us to, for me to kind of like complete this, kind of very initial idea and video that I had made into like a more finished video, but then also an opportunity for Trey and I to work together in a way that we really haven't before. I mean, we work together with the park, but we're always kind of like fabricating or working with other artists' ideas.
And we made some videos. This came about because we made the dump cake video.
Oh yeah.
And that was like, Tam had she had like an existential tailspin after the show got canceled.
Well, it was, again, postponed. It was going to open in April. And then I was like,
postponed. I'm sorry. And so we were like, what can we do? And then Allison was like, well, I can, maybe we can share a dump cake recipe, because you just finished the dump cake, and it was like
a sculpture of a dumb cake, like splat onto a wall.
So we just made like a regular old how-to video with a little bit of Tamara flair, and we, she like hand drew all the labels for the rest for the products that she used in her recipe.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Well, I'll have to share it for sure. It's really funny.
Yeah. So that started, and we were like, that was kind of cool. Like, what else could we collab on? So we did Philosophy of Goo.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out.
Yeah.
13 minutes of goo.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
And it's got, like I said, it's maybe the most autobiographical thing I've ever made. And Trey really encouraged me to kind of incorporate some personal anecdotes in with the research that I had done. But it spans from things that are very personal and maybe uncomfortable, but it's layered with a lot of visual candy. So there's a lot of like really, and it kind of shows maybe my age because some of those clips are like very like 90s Nickelodeon. But also to, I really wanted to kind of just maximize this visual variation of what goo is, and like when it's good and when it's bad, and when it's inside the body and when it's outside the body, and when it's alien and when it's familiar, and when it heals you and when it harms you. And like, and also too, it's just like 2020 is the year of goo. We have to be so fluid and viscous. There's no planning. You can't like hold on to an idea for an extended amount of time anymore. So I was also thinking like if there's a metaphor for this goo to be the way to function, to let precarity or flexibility just be like the foundation of something, which, doesn't make sense really, but it's like what we have to do now. And so I'm really proud of it. I feel, I've watched it like so many times now and I still enjoy it each time. But I think also too, that's because we had Allison Cleon, who, is the director of XO. She narrates it and she has a very beautiful narration
She
voice.
does.
Yeah.
She does. Yeah. Getting gooey.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to shift to the lightning round.
Okay.
Oh.
These are just quick questions, short answers.
Okay.
So we'll start with you ladies
Okay.
first. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Night
Night owl.
owl. Yeah, night owl. Yeah.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Yeah, same. Talking or texting?
Talking.
Texting.
Facebook or Instagram?
Instagram.
What's
Yeah.
the last book you read?
Well, I just started a really new one called Contested Waters, which is about the history of swimming pools.
Ooh.
And I started it a while back, so it feels like it's the last thing I read and the most current thing I've read. So
Yeah, I'm trying to think about what's the last thing I read. I read like a really boring programming book for class, but then I also just read this the new conservation movement, which is about like neo-conservation movements in the U.S. and abroad, which is really good.
With land or?
Yeah, well, like they kind of are. The best thing I took from the book was that like, so we talk about the Anthropocene, right? And like, that's blaming people that had nothing to do with this, right? So why not call it the capitalist-cene, right? Because it's really capitalism that has caused these conditions. So they're like kind of like renaming things. But then also I learned about this whole movement where it's like there's people that want to give 2/3 or 50% of the earth back to the earth and say we will live on one side and let the other side do its thing. So they just kind of like talk about the politics of these sort of positions in the book, which is good.
Oh, that's really interesting. What's your first memory in a museum?
Ooh, I remember my mom taking me to the Fort Worth Modern and going inside that Richard Serra and thinking this is weird and cool. I was maybe like 15, 16.
Yeah. I remember that was the High Museum and they have like a spiral ramp that goes down. And I was just thinking the whole time, like, I should bring my skateboard in here.
I don't think they would like that.
I don't think they would either.
What do you collect?
Recipes.
Camera equipment.
So many camera components.
If you weren't making art or running SweetPass, what would you be doing?
Ooh, I'd be either a dermatologist or a lawyer or commercial real estate. I could maybe still do all of those.
Yeah.
I might.
Yeah. I'd probably be like a engineer or industrial designer, I think.
So collaboration is a lot about kind of your programming, your practice, and what you all do, whether it's together or with groups locally or abroad. Who would you like to collaborate with SweetPass or bring to SweetPass that you haven't gotten yet, or just a dream collaboration?
That's a great question. Well, we only show emerging and mid-career artists, so I don't know. I have like a passion for contemporary dance, and I really admire the choreographer and dancer Miguel Gutierrez. I'd love to have him in the park. I also really like David Brooks' work. He's an incredible sculptor based in New York. And then, if Robert Gober wants to put one of his buried sinks in the park,
Sculpture Ranch.
I'm never going to say no to that.
Yeah, the buried sinks. Architect, or to do some sort of like dedicated new media space or something, like DDA Faustino or something, like just to do something big and permanent.
Permanent.
Cool.
Yeah. That's when you buy the.
When we buy
the spot.
We need a endowment.
Yeah.
If you could own any work of art, like you could steal it, you'd get away with it, what would it be?
Probably, and I think this is at the Philadelphia Museum where they have all of Duchamp's piece, but he made this it's called the Wedge of Chastity. And it's like this pink plastic resin with a big kind of wedge of lead. And it looks like, a beautiful vagina. And it was kind of like a large part of when I was working on my thesis at RISD, a very influential piece to me. The materiality of it, the kind of like silliness and funniness of it. And it's, it's like paperweight size. So I think I could actually steal it and get away with it.
Yeah, that whole room is the Duchamp room is crazy.
It's so good.
The little keyhole. Yes. I remember in art history, there was one of our professors, she showed us the door.
Yeah.
And she said, you look into the keyhole and there's an installation in there, but I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like 10 years later that I made it to Philadelphia and saw it. And you could
love
Google
that.
it, but there's no fun in that.
The grease of like all the people who've looked through the hole on the Dantes.
There's like a Moholy-Nagy painting that he ordered from a sign painter over the phone and like dictated via grid that I've always really loved that I would like to have.
Cool. Where is it?
It's at the MoMA. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice you can give to artists?
Do it yourself. I don't know. I mean, make your own opportunities happen for yourself, because it gets to be the fatigue of applying for things and waiting for people to tell you that you can do stuff. I don't know when that became the protocol for being an artist, but just turn the other direction and, create your own opportunities.
Yeah. Don't wait for validation.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sort of in that similar thing. If like the advice to artists is, make your own path by walking it or whatever that cliche is.
Yeah. Don't worry about what other people are gonna think about your work and just do it.
But like but bigger than that, like some in the line of SweetPass is like create the thing that you want to, the space that you want to exhibit in, like get together with some people and make it, and then just show yourselves, because I don't know, I feel like that's just like the way now,
And what about someone who wants to open up a kind of a non-traditional sculpture park?
Yeah.
What advice would you give them?
Come to Dallas.
There you go. Right.
Yeah. There's room.
Yeah.
There's room.
I think your fundraising model, that's also kind of a key component of the survival or the future of the park. And I think my favorite fundraising object that I've seen is the Armut.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Sure.
That kind of relates to the Duchamp room.
Yeah. I mean, Duchamp lover over here, but I think for Trey and I, it was this question of like, how are we going to make SweetPass sustainable? It wasn't like we had set aside a bunch of money to start this.
Hold on, let's rewind a little bit. This piece came about from a very early interaction that we had. So in 2013, Tamara curated me into a show, but then I got exhibition at SCAD, my alma mater. They invited me to come back, and I made a book project called Prototypes, where I reached out to artists and said, like, give me like all your like kind of new ideas, like the stuff they haven't quite resolved yet. And Tamara put in the
wandering yard,
the sod car. Like she put some drawings in there. And then I just had, for fun, put in like just dumb ideas that I'd have, because I have 1,000 dumb ideas every day.
They're good ideas.
And one of them was this dog bowl that was the our mutt on the ground and like a golden retriever was drinking out of it. I made like a really bad collage, and that was just like an advertisement in between everybody's project.
It's on the Armet website.
Yeah,
I think.
this original thing.
Yeah.
And so when Tamara and I started dating and, getting more serious, I was like, remember that thing? And like, she'd never seen the final book, and I showed her a PDF of it. And she was like, what is that? And I was like, oh, this is this dumb dog bowl idea I had. She's like, hold on a second. And she like bought ourmutt.com.
Well, this is, I'm like the first, if anything ever is a good name or title or an idea, I just go straight to GoDaddy and see if the domain is available.
Yeah.
I'm really impulsive with domains too.
Ourmutt.com was available. Yeah. And now, I mean, I think we could sell it for like a couple $1,000s, I don't know. None of my other domains are that, like cool. But so it was, and I saw the domain and I bought it, and I was like, we're making these.
Yeah.
Well, I said that, and then realized the process of like, just watch, you can watch at the Kohler Art Center where, they make toilets. The process for making urinals and toilets is super complicated. Yeah. And I mean, I do mold making in my work, but mold making in ceramics is a whole other ballgame. You have to do a plaster mold, so the water gets absorbed into the plaster. I
mean, even before that, though, we were making prototypes of it. To go back to the book, we were trying to make different versions of it, and you had modeled one, and we're like, oh, well, we just have to find a food safe plastic we can cast this in.
Can't do it.
Doesn't exist. Yeah. Like you can't buy it as an individual. You have to buy it like in a bulk industrial thing. And then like there's all these sort of like rules, and people are weird about their dogs, so we weren't going to use like a non-food safe plastic. Yeah. I mean, not weird about our dogs. I wouldn't give my dog
we're like, you're leaving water sitting in this.
Yeah, you're leaching out, whatever.
So it was like, it has to be ceramic. So it's a 12-part plaster mold.
Yeah.
I hand make every one. It takes me start to finish. Probably each one is, I don't know, anywhere from like.
Don't give them the sauce.
Okay, fine. They're hard to make.
But you make it. I didn't realize that you made it yourself.
I make it by hand. I'm actually making a little small batch right now in the studio.
Yeah.
And so it took about a year to get that first one made, and we were doing it in New York. And then when we came down here, we were like, well, we'll sell these and we'll just let the proceeds go directly to Sweet Pass.
Yeah.
And I wish, in some cases, I'm like, I wish I could just make dog bowls all day. I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
Even though it's ceramics has it's, you put it in the kiln and it explodes and the glaze doesn't turn right. And it's a little bit like you don't have a lot of control.
I think we should tell the Nasher story.
It's not as easy as goo.
Yeah. No, God.
I think we should tell the Nasher story about how they got into the Nasher store.
Yeah,
That's kind of the first ones we sold.
Yeah, that's true.
So we had this prototype. We kind of made have we even made the website at that point? It was just like the first one. Anyways, we were shopping it. We like brought it to a lunch that we had with Lee Arnold, one of the curators at the National. We're like, hey, how do we sell this in your store?
I had it in my Trader Joe's bag.
And to be clear, it's a replica of Duchamp's urinal fountain.
Yes. So
our mutt from 1917.
Yeah, and ours is our mutt, OUR.
Yeah.
A play on it.
And so to bring that to lunch, that's...
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. Yeah. And we were like, Lee, how do we sell this in the museum store? And she was like, oh, okay. Maybe you should go talk to Donald, who runs the Nasher store. And we showed it to him, and he was just like this gregarious, like businessman, like, well, what's your retail? Like, started like going like, I think this is a runner. I think this is going to be a big thing. And like, was like, I want to sell it. I want to help you out. I want to do all this thing. We can get some press for it. He was like so enthusiastic, and we were like, we didn't quite expect that reaction. And he was like, I want to do it. Let's do a couple. We'll put them in the store. We'll see what happens or whatever. And then, we get that there. He puts it on the website, and then we find out he got hit by
passed away.
Yeah.
I know. It was really
tragic accident.
Yeah, I was working on a project with him right before COVID hit, and then we hadn't talked in a while, and then I mean, awful.
So sad.
Yeah, really, really sad.
I mean,
he was an amazing guy.
He was.
I was really lucky to just get to meet him.
Yeah.
Yes. Same with us.
Kind of like a brightness. He had like a brightness that just not a lot of people have.
Crazy.
But he was so encouraging and kind, and I think that kind of helped us say like, okay, well, let's try some other places. Let's see where we can put this. And
him telling us that this was like something and like is going to be big and like all that stuff, like his pep talk, encouraged us to like
super
take it seriously and actually get him out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't even find out that we had sold one until like we got a call from the Nasher, and they were like, "Hey, so somebody bought an Our Mutt bowl off the website. Like,
what is that?
Do you know anything about this?"
Yeah.
And we're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
So then they started.
Mm-hmm. So now you can buy them on our website, and we also have them on the Hyperallergic store. Yeah, which has been pretty cool. We've sold quite a few from there. Yeah, and we just kind of make them as we sell them. So it's just another part-time job that we have.
But that's the water bowl. What's the dog food bowl? And with your dog, what receptacle, what vessel do you put the food?
This is a good question.
He's got like 15 Our Mutt bowls all over the house.
Yeah, he's spoiled.
He gets all the tests. But you can put food in it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can buy two and have one for food and one for water. Yeah.
I can't wait to purchase one, but I feel like I need a dog first. But I know I don't need a dog first.
Get the
I can
bowl.
put my keys in it, right?
Yeah, get the bowl and the dogs will just appear.
I think so. So. So my final question I ask everyone is that there's no crystal ball, but if I give you a magic wand, what's your wish for the art world?
That the blue chip market collapses. That'd be my wish.
Yeah, I think just, not like a hard reset, but like kind of back to this idea of when things didn't have a hierarchy of rules and protocols and structures to like be able to do things. I'm thinking of like Soho in the 80s and apartment shows in New York and, the early 90s and things where it was not about art fairs and it was not about, these like high level ways of selling your work or having that be, the main goal. I don't know.
No, how about this? Permanent funding for temporary projects.
Yes. Quoted by one of my mentors, Patty Phillips. Yeah. Because that's where the good stuff happens. I mean, when things are ephemeral and temporary and they have the most support, those are magical moments. Things that are meant to last forever, they're kind of doomed before they even start, I think. Yeah.
I was just reading an article about the budget for the police that have to protect the monuments in New York.
Oh, yeah.
Like this insane amount of money to have cops, like 4 at a time, standing outside of a Columbus monument.
And like, circle,
just like the amount of money required for that and like what that could do for the community. And it's this kind of insane protection of what? I don't quite understand. But New York has like touted this with like sort of pride that they haven't lost a monument during this whole.
Yeah.
Except the one in front of the AMNH, the American Museum of Natural History, the Teddy Roosevelt Monument.
Oh, did they come
removed?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But not by protesters. Or maybe.
I think that was the reason for it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyways, I was just reading this last night. I was like, what? This is crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel really strongly about that. I want to get involved in public art and monuments because I think we need to remove them and replace them with something. Yeah. They're a perfect site for public art. And when they removed the double equestrian portrait of Robert E. Lee, here in Dallas, which is a very visible monument. You drive by it, very affluent neighborhood, and they took it down in the middle of the night, in the dark of night, a week after, maybe less than a week after Charlottesville, because they were anticipating, problems. And I don't know, kudos to them for doing it. But then when they removed the pedestal, that was what made me really upset because I thought that would be a perfect, no trace. I thought that would be and will be, and I'm going to work on that when I find the time to start a career in public art. Is to figure out who are our new heroes. Dallas is the fastest growing metropolitan city in the U.S. and it's still happening, and the demographics of that neighborhood are changing, and the demographics of Dallas are changing, and
and people are so afraid. People are afraid of like what it feels like to change or to be open to new ideas. Maybe I would take away the fear with my magic wand.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah. And by the way, we're recording this the day before Halloween, which is the super moon. We're supposed to have the orange moon. It's like the hocus pocus one. And then on Tuesday, the election happens. I know. And then the end of the world really begins.
I know. I made an appointment for my dog to go to the vet. And they were like, how about Tuesday? And I looked and it was like election day. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Like vertigo Zoom, like what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I made an appointment for something the day after, and then I looked at that and I was like, yeah, we got to cancel. We're going to clear that day.
I'm going to therapy.
We'll be in the park in our hammocks.
Yeah,
there you go. All right, cool. I'll join you. That'll be fun. Thank you guys so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
It's been so much fun.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to our season finale. Recording Artroverted could have only happened during the pandemic. I'm fortunate that this time has been one of creation. It has been such a privilege, and I'm so grateful to everyone that took the time to speak with me. It's given me, and hopefully everyone listening, hope for the future and the essential role that art plays in our lives. Please subscribe, review, and send your feedback. It's been heartening to hear from many of you how you've enjoyed these 15 episodes, and I can't wait to be back with season 2 in the spring. Remember, when it comes to art, it doesn't matter if you're introverted or extroverted, because you can always be artroverted. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you soon.